think about it in the last 1 billion years of this earth or something, or 100 million years, 1/10,000th of a second is what we have captured. This photograph has come from 2,500th of a second, which is faster than probably an eye can blink.
Yeah.
And that's what is captured. We are still prodding and probing and experimenting and learning and taking decisions on an animal's behalf without actual facts, what the animal feels like. I think there is a possibility of trying to see how we can bring in responsible tourism, and not just tourism, make every person who goes there a responsible citizen when they go back.
What happens when a sharp eye for detail meets a deep love for the wild? You get someone who doesn't just capture images, but entire ecosystems in a single frame. Our guest today on the Expressions podcast is Dinesh Kumble, wildlife photographer, author, and entrepreneur whose work blurs the line between art, adventure, and awareness. Whether he's deep in the forest, tracking elusive species, or crafting thoughtful narratives, through his books, Dinesh has a unique gift. He helps us see the wild not just through a camera, but through a deeper, more mindful lens. From boardrooms to bird sanctuaries, his journey is a rare blend of curiosity, creativity, and conservation. Welcome to The Expressions. Today I'm in conversation with Dinesh Kumble. Thank you, sir, for coming here.
Thank you, Neha.
I went through some of your pictures while I was researching, and they're beautiful, gorgeous. So I just want
Thank you so much.
Yes.
That's very nice of you. Kind of you.
So do you think photography has brought out the artist in you?
Actually, it has probably, because I can't paint or draw to save my life. So I think photography did, because I think the best thing about photography is the camera. To me, is a great invention because it captures the essence of light. And when it captures the essence of light, it basically captures the essence of life as well. So to do that, putting a camera in my own hand gave me the confidence that, hey, I can also do something which is creative, maybe even artistic, and maybe even showcase it to others. Whatever I probably had as an intrinsic interest or art, which I thought I could communicate with some other medium. So that's what made me get onto photography.
How would you describe your style? And why wildlife photography? Why not any other genre?
See, I love the action part of it. But why wildlife is because you cannot make any species on the planet pose for you, number one. The second thing is you are out in the elements. The animals are out in their natural habitat. And to get the best out of that is the most challenging aspect. It is not under controlled conditions that you really get a picture. Though now it has changed a bit where people are trying to control some of their behavior to get their pictures, which I don't really promote. But then that is one. And the second thing is you're out in the wild, in nature, and anything can happen, anything can go wrong, everything can go right. And you do not even know what to expect. The same with sport. I love sports photography because there's a lot of action, there's a whole lot of human interaction. But to me, the wildlife being out there and you don't know what action you to expect, and then probably even giving a little voice to that creature is something that I would like to bring out.
And how would you describe your encounter with an animal? Does it refuel something inside you, any emotion inside you?
See, the magnificence of every small creature, whether you take it from a small spider to the beautiful tiger or a lion or a majestic elephant, it has something unique to it.
Yeah.
It could be the color, it could be the size, it could be the shape, it could just be the aura around it that it presents, or some behavioral pattern which is extremely unique. To bring that essence out, I think is what I always look out for and try to figure out if I can do that. And that small little expression which we humans actually humanize that, thinking that, hey, this animal is sad or happy or angry, or is something that the human reflects on, right? It is not, we don't even know how the animal is moting, what is it actually. But then to bring that out is what, I think that's what interests me most.
Because I had a look in some of your close-up pictures of this tiger with their tongue out near the water, the birds flying. I mean, it's amazing.
One of the things that I love is every single action or every single creature has some pattern in it. So when the birds fly, let's say in a flock or together, they have a pattern, they have something that you can learn from. And the same with the tiger when it sips the water with its tongue inverted, trying to just pull it up, lap it up.
Yes. What would it be if you had to pick one thing as your biggest passion? Is it wildlife photography or is it anything else?
I would love wildlife. But off late, I've kind of looked at how we can get people at work in their natural environment when they are actually doing it. We're not really making somebody pose with a computer or whatever. What are their emotions when they're working? That is something which is exciting to me these days, and I keep doing that. In one of the projects that we did for the Gujarat government in 2015 was around that, but mainly in the rural area. So it was very fascinating to see people, sewing, people doing a lot of things and weaving and other things, and capture that in the natural environment.
So with no background in photography, what were your earliest influences? I also read that you and your brother were passionate about photography since childhood. Were there any earlier influences that built this passion in you?
I mean, we were very young when my father probably had a camera, and it got stolen. Half of it he was repairing it, and it got stolen. Then he had a collection of some black and white photos, and those were the ones which actually fascinated me to start with. It's the same probably with Anil that happened. I can't really say what really triggered his passion. What I recollect is that it was very hard those days to get hold of a camera. I mean, there was import restrictions, so many other things which you could do in the 60s and 70s, especially when we were growing up. We could not lay our hands on any camera. We always wanted to get a picture, but we never had a camera. But in the 80s, I think, is when it opened up a little bit. India at least had some small Kodak cameras. There was a camera called Hotshot. I still recollect one incident where Anil was selected for the under-19 camp to Srinagar. The camp was in Srinagar, under-19. He was 17, I think. So I actually borrowed a Hotshot camera. I don't think people even realize what the Hotshot camera was. It was a 135mm small little camera with a film. And I gave it to him and I said, you're going to Kashmir. Just click, look at what you can, and just click and come back. So that was the first instance that I gave him a camera borrowed from a friend of mine. He was hardly 17. I was hardly 20, in my 20s. So he said, okay, just go ahead and do it. That was our first instance of, maybe that triggered his passion for photography. That was his first outing out of Bangalore as a 17-year-old boy, then going to Kashmir. And other than capturing these things.
So what are some of the best places to teach yourself? Or did you want to intern with someone to get better photography skills?
Actually, no. But let me explain on that. I mean, we all grew up at a time when we would either have to choose engineering or medicine.
Yes.
And I chose engineering, or it just happened. And there were not many art schools, or we never were aware of these art schools as well. None of our maybe parents, uncles, grandfathers, and they all were in the field of art. Until the time that I got to US to do my master's, I didn't have a camera. But with the little money that I was given by my parents to go and study, I used it on buying a camera, which didn't work. I bought a second-hand one in New York, and somebody just swindled me, for a young fellow coming here buying a camera. Then the engineering part of me took over, and I just broke open that complete camera and learned it from scratch as to what is this instrument all about. So that the technology of capturing light came before the creative aspect of capturing light, probably, and that has remained in me. So there's a lot of technology that I understand of a camera. The creative part is happening on a natural basis, because I think creativity comes naturally to people, and each person is different, and each person's creativity is very individualistic. It's not common.
Yeah.
So you can't copy creativity, but you can understand technology. So that's what happened. So I've really not had a guru, but over the years, what has happened is there have been people that I've followed. Like for example, in India, it was late Mr. Perumal, who was the doyen of wildlife photography. I had the privilege of at least going on 1 or 2 tours with him, and to a meaning at least to Bandipur and Nagarole, and the way he looked at it and what he did. And there were a few others, Dr. Manoj Sindagi, who is also a friend of mine, but went along with him. Mr. M. J. Kumar that I go with. Even recently, last month I went to Africa with him. So there are a lot of people we kind of follow. And some of the international artists in wildlife, Brandenburg, we look up to.
Yes.
And these are all people with older cameras and lots of struggle other than the digital.
Yes.
And early part of 2000s and 2005, 10. And a lot of self-learning. When I say self-learning, it's a dual-edged sword. One is you learn a lot on your own. The second is you will spend a lot of money, and spend a lot of time and effort in making those mistakes to learn. So that is the hardest part, because the more mistakes you make, the better you become. The problem is to realize that you have made a mistake. See, the moment you understand that, hey, this is a mistake I made, that's when you look for a solution. But it's harder to figure out what the mistake was or what mistake you made.
Yes.
So that is an art which I think I learned from others, as to, okay, this is something wrong I'm doing, but I need to learn from somebody. And for that, there was not one person, but I tried to, kind of experiment, relearn, re-experiment, relearn. So that takes a lot of time. So there was really no course or structured program that I attended. It was more of self-learning and self-experimentation.
Lovely. I know that you've been to a lot of wildlife parks, right from Africa, South Africa, to Pinch, to Gujarat. So what is your key takeaway and learnings from all these travels that you've done?
Even in 2025 that we are here, it's lovely to see all these animals which have been living for thousands of years, probably longer than humans have been, still amongst us. So one of the things that I have kind of learned is that they probably have much more resilience than a human can at any given point in time. Though we still do not know what a tiger is thinking when it looks at a human. We have a lot of assumptions. I mean, that's okay. How is it actually thinking about its own survival is something that we are not able to actually identify. We are still prodding and probing and experimenting and learning and taking decisions on an animal's behalf without actual facts, what the animal feels like. And I feel that is one thing which every time I enter a park, that's the only thing which I keep thinking about, as to what is it actually thinking about when it is looking at us. Are we getting extinct? Do the animals know that the humans are going extinct? I feel sorry for them. Or is it the other way around?
But did you also get to learn about animal behavior? Because you need a lot of patience just sitting and watching them, right? While you're capturing them.
Yeah. See, patience is a virtue, they say, right?
Yes.
So what happens now is when you say patience, it requires a lot of patience in wildlife photography. I would say no. But then I keep telling people that if you really want the best pictures, understand its behavior. So don't instantly pick up the camera. Think about what is going to happen next. What is it going to do next? What is it really up to? I always say that, photography is one frozen moment in time. It's probably 1/5000th of a second, which is frozen. Think about it in the last 1 billion years of this earth or something, or 100 million years. 1,000th or 1/10,000th of a second is what we have captured. And that's what I'm showing you. This photograph has come from 2,500th of a second, which is faster than probably an eye can blink.
Yeah.
That's what the camera technology does. And that's what is captured. That's just one fleeting moment. And people are trying to just rush that moment. And I'm saying don't rush that moment. And understanding behavior and learning from it, is something that is always a constant, because you need to keep doing that. The learning doesn't stop when you're there taking a picture. When you bring 1,000 pictures back home and you start, seeing through all of those, that's when you realize a few other things about the animal which you didn't know. And that's what you need to learn. So it's not about taking a picture, then putting it on social media and saying, and it's nice to get likes, even though, you need appreciation, everybody needs that. So it's all fine. But what do you learn from that one picture?
Any example?
I will actually give you a small anecdote of what really happened. It was in Pench National Park, you mentioned Pench earlier. This was a peak of summer, around May, maybe even June. May, June are the hottest months in central India, I think. And the temperature was maybe over 40, close to even 50s. So there's a very small pond, man-made kind of a pond, where a tanker would come, fill that small little pond with water, and that would disappear in the morning, maybe by 7:30 they would do that. So there was this very famous tigress called Kolavali around. So she would control that particular territory and where the pond was, right? There would be jeeps parked, all these safari vehicles parked on either side of the pond, lines of it, waiting for the tigress to appear. Because that was the only place in that park where there was water. She would come and sit in the water for hours. Because tigers love water, they love to cool off, they sit there. So in the peak of summer, maybe at 7:30 or whatever, 7:30 in the morning is still hot, come and sit. All the other animals, the deer, the langoose, maybe even mongooses, the wild boars, they would stand like in a periphery because they know that the tiger's in the pond, but they need the water too. But what really caught my attention or drew my real, complete focus on was the fact that these tigers would every 2-3 minutes look at these other animals, realize that, hey, they also need this water for survival. So she would just walk out and just go back to wherever she, maybe to her cubs or wherever else to rest, though it was still hot. And that little water pond for that day would now get filled up with these deer, samba, the rest of it coming and drinking from there. Maybe even taking a small little dip and going back. A couple of hours later or whatever, she would come back. What caught my attention is that little resource. If that resource was not there, the humans are helping by maybe putting some water, yes. But that little resource is shared so beautifully. So that is one thing which is completely, natural. And that is something that we can learn. Every little resource that we have, it needs to be shared.
And any close counter with any of those wilder animals?
There's an interesting thing that I had with the python in Gujarat when I was doing the book for them, where it was in a cave and I had to go crawling into it. There was a small crevice, like a thing, in a rocky crevice where there was a python. So one of the watchers came and told me, this was when we were doing the wildlife book for the government of Gujarat. This was 2009 and 10, I think. I said, look, I want the python in its natural kind of where it is sitting or relaxed. So I had to go on my belly, on my knees and on my elbows, and I crawled in with my camera in front. And I didn't know where this was. And there was another little opening here. So I asked somebody to reflect the light from the sun. They're putting a reflector just to put a little more light into it. And I had a small little headlamp. So the headlamp lit up that little place. And then I went with this small little camera with a small lens, 24-70 lens or something. So because I was going in closer. And then since I was on my belly, I asked that watcher to hold my legs.
Okay.
And if I shake my legs to pull me out. Because I thought if that hit me, then it would really catch me, right?
Correct.
I didn't know Gujarati and he couldn't speak Hindi. I couldn't speak much Hindi. So it was like somehow he understood, okay, Saab, okay, go. And then he would pull me out. I had full confidence. Luckily, the python did not hit. And probably if it had, the whole confidence I had was it will catch hold of the camera first. Because that was in front of my face. So it would catch the camera and then I could let go or something. But then You never know.
the risk. I also read that you also had to deep dive into the sea to get pictures for Gujarat.
One or two we did, but I didn't do the deep sea one. We actually got a professional to do that. There was a nice thing which, when the tide retreats, there are a lot of tide pools which get formed between rocks and on the sand. And then you see a lot of life forms in them before the tide comes in. So fish, maybe octopus, maybe a lot of shellfish and other things. And those are amazing. We had the best time doing that project. Me and my wife, especially those between 2009 and 2015, we did 3 books for the government of Gujarat. One on wildlife, one on the region Kutch, and then on rural empowerment, women empowerment.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating, all 3 of them. That is something which I would love to do. Those 3 projects were the best period of my photography professional life.
Okay. So compared to African safari, how different is India? What is your experience like? Because you've been to both.
See, India has got these so-called dense jungles, okay? Most of it. Africa, especially Kenya, Tanzania, eastern part of Africa, has the great savannas, the plains, the open land, where you get to see the horizon, which is maybe 20 kilometers away. There's a vast canvas of colors and the sunrise and the sunset is so beautiful. Though the same sunrise and sunset in India is the same, what happens here is because of the tree, the canopy, and then the mountain and the hills, by the time the sun comes up, it's already quite bright. Very rarely we'll see a full sunrise going on from the actual first rays of the sun to mid-morning. Whereas in Africa, you'll go when the sun is just coming up from the horizon, and the density of animals, the ungulates, and the antelopes in Africa are much higher. And because of the openness of the savanna and the grasslands, you get to see them almost every 5 seconds, 10 seconds, maybe every minute. And because of that, the density of the predator, you have a large, let's say, population of wild animals. Then there is this migration pattern of the wildebeest, which migrate from the Serengeti to the Masai Mara. They go back across the river. And so there is a lot of other action. But India is very unique. India, if you take just as the subcontinent, and if you take all the 4 corners, the north, the south, east, and the west, they are completely different. Look at the south, it has got the long coastline. So you have a whole lot of marine species and so many other things. And take the west, okay, the salt deserts, the mud flats, and then you have and Rajasthan, the Thar desert. The desert has a completely different ecosystem, wildlife. The north, which is snow leopards and the Himalaya. And then as you go along to the east, the Sundarban, the mangroves. Now, every part of the country, and the central part, which is the Deccan Plateaus and the little mountains of the Aravalis, the Sahyadris, the Western Ghats, each one is a biosphere hotspot. We don't really appreciate what we have. So the challenge here is, when it comes to photography and challenge, there's always good light, good subject, and a large canvas to make some wonderful pictorial wildlife photographs in Africa. But in India, it's that much more challenging because of light conditions, because of tropical environment or climate. And then you have the challenges of tall trees and shadows and darkness. So even if an animal comes out for a fleeting moment, it's out and then it's gone into the shade, right? But for a photographer's, African, especially the savanna, is a photographer's dream.
Do you think that the extinction of animal is getting, this topic is getting severe now in India?
The biggest thing that we need to actually look at is, are we overcrowding our forest boundaries? See, it's okay to overcrowd a city because you can go vertical, you can do a lot of things, expand. But I have a feeling that the periphery of our national parks and tiger reserves are getting overcrowded. I think there is a possibility of trying to see how we can bring in responsible tourism, and not just tourism, make every person who goes there a responsible citizen when they go back. And not just think about taking a picture, photograph, come back, go to a bench. Tomorrow I'll go to Toronto, body after I'll go to Rajaji, I'll go to Corbett. The next year I've planned my own bucket list of doing these, going there, visiting. No, not that. But trying to see how we can decongest the forest boundaries. We're almost creating a wall around it, okay, with human infrastructure. But I think that decongestion of that is very important, in my opinion.
Also, a lot of my friends are these days, they have South Africa and African safari on their bucket lists. Is there any resort which is unique and not known to many people?
One of the things is actually Gujarat. I mean, even if you go to LRK or a greater run of Kutch or a little run of Kutch, there's Black Buck National Park in Gujarat, which is actually in Velavadar. It's a small park. You don't have many resorts, but it's beautiful. But then you don't have tigers, so people may not go there. People go to Gir because of the lion, but they don't go to this because there's only black bucks and wolves. So there are small pockets like these, even in Africa. I mean, I'll tell you, Ethiopia, for example, I'm trying to do a lot of groundwork in trying to see how we can get to Ethiopia. But people don't go. I have had people who ask me, can I go to Masai Mara for 4 days? I say, why do you even want to go? Because you're not even going to another park. You're not seeing anything else. You're just going to one place, coming back. If you want to really go experience the wild, then there are a lot of hidden gems. Like Savo in Africa, it's completely different. Samburu in Kenya. I'm talking about Kenya, even Savo in Kenya. Samburu. Small gems, but now slowly getting popular. But ideally, what you should actually, or one must actually look at is, how have these animals or species survived in this region for so long, coexisting with the locals? So how is it that it has happened? Rather than just petting something or touching or going for a night safari or whatever it is, it's for our thrill, I understand. But I think the most important thing is for us to also realize or think for a moment as to how is the local human, seeing these animals as, and how are the animals reacting and interacting with them. We think, I want to be out in the nature, is what people say, right? Nature is not somewhere else. It is here. It is around us. It is us. It's in a pot. It's in your garden. It's us. We are there. We are just bringing down a tree and building a building and saying, oh, no, we'll go out for a safari into nature.
I know that you've worked on this project called Dream Safari. It was one of your first books.
Yeah.
Any favorite pick from there?
Under the sunset with two elephants just, in the silhouetted against the sunset. And I somehow felt that elephants are very intelligent animals, right? So I feel when I look at the picture that maybe the elderly elephant of the two is transmitting or actually communicating with the younger one and giving it some gyan.
And how do you prepare yourself mentally and technically before an assignment?
There's a lot of preparation which goes on. I mean, you have to understand, you have to talk to the local people, you have to talk to the local forest guys who are watchers, who are patrolling the forest every day. Some researchers who research on the animal, gather a lot of information. Then you draw out a plan and the season, right? Then you go into a season-wise, you make a plan. And then a monthly-wise or a weekly-wise, and this is what I'm going to do because this is the season for this and this is the season for... It could be the season for breeding, this could be the season for nesting, this could be the season for something else. And, that is the rainy season. I want a photo of something in rain, when it rains, or I want to see when it's early morning. This is where the sun comes up and this is where the first light comes in. So I need a picture like this. So you prepare, you kind of mentally prepare. It's like drawing a storyboard before you make a film. So, or writing a script in your own mind. And then trying to enact that. Though here, you cannot actually, or you do not have control on the actors, but then you're trying to see that you don't miss that shot when something like that happens. From a photography perspective and tips, so you have to go prepared with the right care, depending on what you want. We can't use artificial lights. There's nothing which you can do because flashlights will disturb an animal. And most national parks, you're allowed to photograph only during the day from sunrise to sunset.
Okay. In a world where success is spoken more than failure, how can one approach failure and learn from it?
Most wildlife photographers fail in their photography, right? They only showcase 5% of their photos or less than that. The rest is all failures, which they don't talk about. See, unfortunately, we don't talk about the failures. But when you learn from it, you get better with your 5%, right? And that's what they showcase. So that is our human nature, to actually showcase only the 2% or the 5%. So we only talk about even successful businessmen, professionals, successful pilots, successful whoever's been successful student, the top 3% or 5%. The reason is, in India, I'll take the Indian context and our culture. We are not allowed to fail from childhood. But we do not go and guide a child or a person as to what mistakes they made can be corrected. Slowly it is turning, it is changing, but I'm coming from a slightly older generation. But then, as long as you know that you're convincing one other person, that is good enough. That is being successful. What is the joy that that person gave to another person in the audience? Somebody has learned a life lesson in the 10 minutes watching that person act. And that is the small difference, that is actually the success that people don't talk about. If you take the example of Kaadoo board games, we had games. We had electronic games where it was called Anil Kumble's Googly and How's That and all that, where one could create a team and play a game, okay, on the computer. So we had a virtual World Cup and so many other things. That was in the 90s, late 90s, 2000, early 2000. That was a sports software. This happened all prior to the IPL, and we actually kind of hived off, closed a few things and a lot of other things. 2008, when the IPL was just about starting. So that was you want to call it failure or a success, I do not know. So the gameplay was also on wildlife, safari, animals and all that, and board game. So 2015, we started that. In fact, Rahul Dravid launched it in Bangalore. 5 years later from the time we started, COVID hit, the lockdown. There was a super spike in our sales because it was board game. People were at home. They were also bored. So board games became a nice little thing for them to engage in. 2022, 23, 24, the last 3 years, there's a complete paradigm shift of human behavior when it comes to how they consume content, whatever. Board games took a complete. In India, when we did the little bit of survey, what really came out was, even though the children were interested in playing, they had nobody to play with. Because the parents were busy working from home.
Yeah.
And they were all given a device. And all their friends had devices. Screen time increased. And group time, family time, group time reduced. What really happened was, the gaming industry went down.
Yes.
So our board games are at a stage where we are contemplating now of completely clearing out our warehouse and shutting that and re-looking at the entire scenario of gaming. Maybe in terms of digital, converting some of our games into digital as well, because that's how time moves. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking about from a success failure that we spoke about, whether this is successful or failure, right? Here we were trying to give every parent, every child, a clean game with no violence, which helps a kid learn, not just kid, even adults learn about wildlife, safari, environment, everything, and then we provided a platform where they could come around a table, sit and play, enjoy, give a high five, and that emotion, because we are social animals, right? Human beings are social, we are primates, we are social animals. What we did is, because of that, we've now said, okay, we will take these people to these nature, let's say, sanctuaries. So we started Kaadoo Trails, though I'm involved a little bit in terms of like consulting and a little, maybe even curating some tours and helping the company and the people there trying to take people out.
Okay.
So we're now taking families. We recently had 3 or 4 kids coming, families coming in. So they loved it, they enjoyed it. So now that whole thing is shifted. But in business, there's a constant flux which we need to. Earlier, probably the businesses went through maybe 20, 30 years before they had any flux and change. But today it's come to a 2-3 year cycle, I guess.
And any future expedition, exciting thing coming up?
We're planning to go to China for a snow leopard expedition because we found a place where there are lot more snow leopards visible and maybe even easily photographable than in Spiti or in Ladakh. So we are trying to do that. I'm trying to do a recce this August if possible, but if not now, but maybe later part of the year. The other place I want to actually explore, we are also exploring, is Ethiopia. Very unique wildlife, very unique to Ethiopia. So that's something that we want to explore.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to ask about Kumble Brothers. How was it growing up? And what were your fond memories?
We all came from a lower middle class kind of family. So our gameplay or play time was always on the streets. When we were teenagers, we just growing up, that's when the cricket culture just started because India won the World Cup in 1983.
And when did you realize or identify that he actually has big potential for cricket?
When we both went and joined a club in China, we were in our teens. I mean, he was probably just getting into teens and I was 16, 17, he was 13. At that time, he had a lot of potential as a fast bowler. Today, you have people playing IPL at that age. But those days, they think that he was too fast for his age in school cricket. So some of the umpires started calling him for going and not really bowling properly and all that. It was unfair during those times. So in one of the nets, I clearly recollect that I told him bowl leg spin. And I told him that you forget about the potential. There are only one or two Indian leg spinners then who were playing for India then. And I told him by the time you get there, it is another 6 to 8 years, they would have retired. I didn't have that. It just came out of my, it's just one of those things. So it was more of a suggestion, not even an advice. After that, it is entirely his dedication towards becoming better at it on a day-by-day basis. And the determination to do that, I think, is what took him to where he is today. Nobody knows that he was probably one of the second youngest Indians at that time. When Sachin played when he was 17, he was 18 when he played together.
What has been true enjoyment for you and how has it changed over the years? What was it before and what is it now?
When we are younger, it's actually instant gratification in terms of whatever we did, right? Would make you feel happy or make one feel happy or made me feel happy. But that was very short-lived, maybe. And then you start looking for another one and then you start looking for another one. But I think over a period of time, after doing all of this, I even try to tell myself that don't rush into this. Even though I have done it and I know some of my colleagues will not like it, I still push it, right? So there was a lot of push, get it done, do it perfectly. Now this perfection is very relative. What is perfect for me may not be perfect for my colleague or for somebody else, right? So that perfection that I was driving was creating a lot of anxiety. And I was looking for the perfection. And when you look for that perfection, you're never satisfied.
Absolutely.
And you're always unhappy. Okay. So I think one thing which has happened, maybe pre-COVID, maybe after these businesses and a little bit of downs and ups and downs, and especially over the last 2 to 3 years, when I realized that the world can change faster than what it used to be, I can only adapt to a current situation. So what really gives me happiness today, maximum, or the most, let's say, satisfaction, if I've started out to do something, let's say bike ride, has it given me a nice little feeling when I stopped and take off my riding jacket, take off my helmet? Did it give me let's say a kick? Did it give me that feeling of joy? But I'm trying to make a little adjustments to cut out irritations. The irritations that were there earlier, which made oneself a little, let's say, unhappy or dissatisfied with performance or outcome. That way what happens is the outcome feels very nice and at the end of the day, you feel happy.
So final thoughts on life and how do you find yourself in the place that you are in now?
There's always this conflict in my mind to try put a lot of effort onto another new venture and do something different, because a lot of people tell me that there is creativity in you, this and that. Do I just focus on photography? Do I take people out on these trails and groups? But in my own space, if you really look at it, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't bother me now, which used to bother. These are probably the small irritations that were bothering me earlier. So I am at a process today or a stage where I want to remove most of that. And hopefully in the next 2 years, by the time I get to the retirement ages of the life of professional, what they call it, maybe I would have removed all these things. And then it becomes a steady state or a nice state.
Thank you very much. This was a really interesting conversation, and I wish you all the best for your future expeditions and photography.
Thank you, Neha, for giving me this opportunity, number one, and thank you so much for this lovely interaction. I got to learn a lot too, and all the very best for your program, for your podcast, as they call it now. And I hope you grow a lot more. And thank you so much again. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Same.